Hey everybody, welcome to the Agency Operators Podcast. Today I'm joined by Drew Hart of Vinculum. How you doing, Drew?
Good. Doing great. Yeah.
Happy to have you on, man. We're going to talk agency. We're both agency owners. We know the game. We've been in it for a while, and things are getting harder, right? Building relationships is where it's at in this world of AI. So I'm excited to talk to you about that and just ways that you're navigating with relationship. Before we dive into that main topic, just wanted to ask you a little bit about your background, how you got into the agency space, anything that you can share that just kind of paints a picture of your journey.
Yeah. I'm pulling up a couple of notes here too that are going to support our conversation. But yeah, I mean, everything for us started in, 2020. So started to grow two brands. I built those brands in two different markets. And then on the side, it's like part of like just doing that process, we ended up honestly, like I built like a little tiny team and they weren't fully utilized. And then because I was only in two markets, I was like, there's so much more about advertising I don't know because I'm not doing the advanced stuff. And so what we ended up doing is I started working with other brands and like kind of using the team to kind of sort of support that. But there was no intention of building a services agency out of it. But then it started
Mm-hmm.
taking up more time. So I was like, okay, well, I need to charge people for this because that's just we're adding value and it's worth. And then I was like, there's an agency here, and it just started really organically that way. So we supported, of course, the two brands that we had, and then we started taking on like two other brands, and it was like five other brands, and then it was like eight other brands. Then we got a partnership with somebody else who was looking for someone to do white labeling. They're like, Drew, you're really good at this. Why don't we partner up? So we white labeled for a couple of years, just supporting another agency, but it was powered by Vinculum. It wasn't called Vinculum at the time, but it was powered by our team. And so we kind of just kept going with it. That's kind of how we started it all.
So cool. And the agency that you were servicing, white label wise, was like a larger agency that had multiple offers, and you were just kind of handling their Amazon wing.
Honestly, it's like just it's some scrappy entrepreneurs like coming together and saying, "Hey, listen, like you've got a good service. You really can't do the marketing and sales. I didn't really think that I wanted to do that. I'm a really good operator." And so it just was like the synergy that happened. And now we don't really, I mean, we still work with that other agency, but it's like, not even 10% of our business now. So
Mm-hmm.
like, it's just completely changed in like the last like three, and we've only been around for 4 years. It's not like it's been around for a super long time.
It's funny how these things kind of come up on their own, right? Like you're doing stuff and you're providing value to others around you, and you're just like find yourself like, whoa, I have a team, and there's clients that need this, and it's a much better way of going at something than like having this like very well mapped out blueprint that you're going to follow to every single thing, and it's like you just let things unfold naturally, right?
Yeah, 100%. And it really wasn't opportunistic necessarily. It was more on the organic side. Now I'm much more strategic, right? We're going to talk about partnerships. Now we're much more strategic about like where are we going and what are we going to do because we're becoming like we're seven-figure agencies, so it's much more thoughtful. But when we were doing it sort of like as a side project and it was like not a big deal, it was just who do you know? Yeah, we'll help you out here, and sure we can do that, and it was very informal to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think once you pass over into that seven figure threshold, it's a very different story. It's a lot more formal, and you like we were just kind of talking off camera that the landscape has been changing, and I think there's a number of reasons for that. I think people are getting burned by previous poor experiences, whatever reason those experiences happened, whether it's the fault of the agency or circumstances or whatever it is,
Right.
and just the landscape of AI making a big impact. I see AI really changing things in many industries, of course, but in ours in particular, there's some, I guess, friction points. And I think in general, having real relationships with people is becoming more valuable than anything else because the opposite is just, you don't know what to trust, right? With
Yeah,
all
I
this.
I think AI makes the trust factor worse because
Yeah.
it's so much easier to come in and simulate authenticity rapidly. And so you had these individuals that were like, and I'm figurative speech, but like working in the basement, they have a spreadsheet, and they can just kind of like, spin up some marketing. Now it's like they spin up their own website, they can like polish everything, and they still just don't have the depth of the knowledge, but you don't know that because the surface level aspect of it is like, well, how do I know that they know? And so you've got to be really good about digging into the interview around, who am I working with? Like, who is this partner?
Yeah. That's why you end up doing all this free work for a client right before you sign them on, because that's their vetting process, right? They want to know if you're good or not. And then also the other thing is you might be good as Drew, as Pasha, as like the CEOs, right?
Right,
But
totally.
then who do you get handed off to after you sign the contract? Is it like crickets and you just a number in a spreadsheet?
Yeah.
Or, so I like to try to prove I'm the dumbest guy in the company. All I can do is just tell you what we do, but then the people who are going to do it are
Right. I'm the
way.
sales guy. That's
Yeah,
all I
I'm
do.
just a sales guy. Yeah, I don't know stuff. Like, I know enough to what I'm talking about, but when he gets into the technical stuff, I bring on the specialist, and they're like, these are the guys that run to the day to day.
Yeah,
So,
100%. I totally agree with that. Yeah.
so when it comes to partnerships, like let's dive into that. I'm curious, what is your approach, your view on that? What's your strategy?
Yeah. So if you don't mind, let's define what it is. Cause like, there's lots of different ways to like look at partners. Let me pull up I felt like a partnership cheat sheet here. Cause I've got a specific way that I look at partnerships, because partnerships can show up in ways where like, let me just get this really quick.
You want me to pull it up on the screen here?
No, I mean, I don't mind, but I think it's just easier to kind of like talk about just a handful
Okay.
of these. But I can, while we're kind of waiting for me to pull this up, the first one is to think through like, yeah, here it is. You've got referrals, right? Or affiliates, and those are nuanced. A referral would be like, hey, there's a consultant or somebody who's like a brand insider, and they just know a lot of people. Their careers in e-commerce, so they've got a network. And so those partners are people that we work with to help facilitate introductions. They're putting their reputation on the line, and there's a transaction. They make an introduction. We're happy to help share in the value of their network to do that. And you can cherry pick any of these you want to kind of dive into, Pasha. But the other one's an industry event, which is pretty straightforward. Like Prosper would be an example, right? If you can get on the board and you can speak, or you get a speaking engagement, that's also like another partnership opportunity. So it's like another category that we kind of like think about it that way. There's ecosystem partners. So Brandon Young, who runs like the Inner Circle, he's like a really classic example of that. At least I know him because that's how I got into Amazon, was through the Inner Circle. There's that component. And then there's the ones that are other ecosystems, which are things like individuals that they have like complementary services, but they don't really compete with us. Like we have a creative services, but we don't do what PickFu does. We don't do what Intelli does. We don't do the image pulling. So like there's a partnership idea there. There's like the software vendors that support the ecosystem. Those are all potential partnerships. And then the last one is like just strategic service alignments. So these are folks where like all we do at Vinculum is Amazon. That's all we do. We do a couple of little handful of things where like we'll help out with like Wayfair or Chewy or things like that, because those platforms are pretty easy and some brands sort of just want it all in one place. But we don't do Google, we don't do Meta, we don't do TikTok. Those are the much more heavy overhead related kind of services. Those are also like really good partnerships too, because they may not be specialized in Amazon. They may even actually have an Amazon service, but they're not really deep on it. And for them to get an account, they need to go find a partner who's like really strategic on something like that. And we have relationships across all these different buckets.
Very cool. Yeah, I think you kind of have to hit all pillars in order to really be effective. Because the thing with referrals is you don't have a predictability around it, right?
Yeah.
And that's always the issue. And then like building true relationships is really how you get those referrals. So much of everything is built on referrals, and in many industries I'm finding, because I'm coming from this world, and so I know referrals from like the agency e-commerce space, but
Right.
everything works that way, right? And it's funny because many of the clients that we have currently came that way, but also many of the teammates. And
Yeah.
so
Right.
you get a much better hire when it comes from a referral, because there's this great guy, I know he does good work, whatever happened, here he is. And that, sometimes like I'm lucky that way, where it's just like the right person appears in the right moment. It's like, oh, I really needed this account manager or something like that, right?
Yeah, 100%.
but it's up to chance, and sometimes things happen within organizations where the point person gets let go. I guess not in the case of like it's an entrepreneur consultant, but if you have like a point person, for example, for us it was a larger agency, and we just were able to offer a very similar service at a lower price because they had all this overhead with offices and whatnot. We work
Right.
remotely, so we can do the same thing but cheaper. And so when people said, "Sorry, you're too expensive," they're like, "Oh, here's these guys," and that worked out. So there was a price gap there that was an
Yeah, that
opportunity
makes
for us.
sense. Yeah.
But then the person left. They left the company, and it's like no longer have that relationship. And they, of course, forwarded me to somebody else in the company, but that person doesn't know who I am or
Right.
care to send referrals anymore. So then that dried up. So it kind of goes both ways, you know, and it's important to kind of have all those factors. What I love so much is this kind of a platform where there's an opportunity to express yourself, to have conversations, and that leads also to other relationships and introductions and things like that. And I've gotten so much value out of the partnership aspect, more in the way of doing content together. That's what ended up kind of getting me to accelerate and to prosper and doing all these different events. And I haven't done any speaking live yet,
Yeah.
but
So I have a question for you, right? Just kind of like spark the conversation. So I'm with you.
yeah.
Like, uh, it seems to be easier for me to engage an individual. It's always a human, right? I'm not, even though I want to engage in a company,
Hmm.
like a logistics company, right? Somebody does 3PLs or whatever. I think of them as the 3PL, but to your point, it's a relationship. So it's a human.
Hmm.
And it seems easier to be able to do like content together, right? Like a podcast like this, right? Rather than like sharing them with like, I will literally pay you for the introduction. I'll pay you for the relationship that you introduced to me to win the brand. And that's the part has been like sort of mind blowing to me, because I'm always like, well, money talks. It's always like, if I can just pay you, I'll do it. But people don't take it. They don't do it. And we've been trying to like figure this out. You and I have talked about this, like, you know, in the pre-call, like a couple of weeks ago when we were like, hey, let's get this set up. That part's always fascinating to me, because I feel like folks who are looking for partnerships, it's like, well, will I pay you? And I don't think that they think that's true. I
Hmm.
think if you are going to provide me an introduction, I believe that in the back of your head, right, figuratively you, that if you do that, I'm just going to take advantage of you. I'm going to take
I
that
see.
intro and I'm going to do the deal. I'll close the deal and I'll offer you something up front, and I'll just never tell you about it. And I'm going to walk away and I'm going to ghost you.
I see it differently. So that's interesting that you bring this up. So I was actually on the other side of this type of arrangement where I had a software company. They provide software, reporting software for Amazon sellers, and I had a couple of agency friends. And I said, you know what, I can ask around, you know, and do you guys a solid. And I got them two closed leads for their subscription. Right, it was a pretty high ticket subscription.
Yeah,
So
okay.
of course they were really happy, and they're like, oh, you know, what's your PayPal? Like, let me send you affiliate referral commission. And I was like, no, send me leads. Like, put me on your newsletter.
Right.
Like, reach out to qualify, because I don't care. Like, the $500 commission I'm going to receive is small in comparison to a potential customer that can pay me long term.
Fair.
So it's like almost like once I receive that referral commission, then they're off the hook. They don't owe me anything anymore, and
Mm.
it's done. And that's the way I see it. Is like once the transaction is over, then it's no longer open ended. If it's open ended and it's like, oh, I owe this guy, because it's in the back of your mind, like, this guy was
Yeah,
so good
totally.
to us. He sent us all these leads. Like, we owe him something. You know, it's always there. And
This is
it's
going
like
to be
that.
this is going to be like a partnership program design session for sure, because like that makes a lot of sense, right? Because you're doing B2B, they're doing B2B. There's an overlap with the brands. I would see it the same way. I think I would structure it like you're describing.
Yeah.
What I didn't share in the context that I'm thinking is like, I've got a single person, a brand insider, right? Or a single person who's a consultant, or maybe it's a single person in the logistics company, and there's this overlap that you're referring to, right? But they don't see this B2B relationship. It's really Bob or Sarah who is got the connections, and they're just like, yeah, I can kind of reward myself for the network I have. They're not doing it because they work at the logistics company. They're doing it because they got a network, and they're getting paid personally. It's not like I'm doing a partnership B2B transaction with them. It's that, hey, Bob or Sarah, you know people introduce them to us, and I'll help you. But I got in touch with you because you actually worked at a logistics company, because you're in my ecosystem. And
I
so
see.
for those, like the transaction, like that's really interesting, because it's like the transaction type is going to be different for that DIY one-on-one ish. That's just how I'm framing it. For those, we pay them. We pay them like flat out. Like, you do an intro, we literally within one day we'll just cut you a check, and then you get a residual after it if we close. And the reason we do it is we go for big brands, so we don't typically close a brand like straight away. It doesn't happen like in 2 weeks. It's a longer sales cycle. So we want some maybe potential back channeling and some context to help support what we're doing on the sales side to close the deal. Maybe even ask them to check in, see how the bid's going, or, is the RFP out there, or how is Vinculum sizing up? Or did they meet your expectations? Because I provided you an intro. I'm just checking in, and we can get context and some information that helps support closing the deal. So a lot of our partners, like a lot of the referrals, are that side, like that just that category of the referral piece.
And would you say that channel has been the most successful for you in terms of growth?
Again, it's like like nothing's been purposeful. It's just been organically, like it's kind of gone that way. But yeah, we get quite a few things this way. And then naturally, because it works, we keep going further and further and investing in more creative ways to kind of like nurture that channel, right? But to your point, if I spent my time and effort like going after more B2B, sort of like where there's real client overlap, well, I've got to go build my audience and stuff and have something to actually trade. It's like you've got a good audience, right? You've got like a list that you can share with this individual or these other entities. We don't really have that.
Yeah, and I generate that list through content, through consistent newsletters and webinars and podcasts and things like that. So the content piece is super important for us to nurture that list and to be able to provide them value. And then when we do a webinar with people, then they invite their audience, we invite our audience, and we share our contacts with them and vice versa. So we're able to grow our list by the people who we invite into our webinar, because then everybody shares that list at the end. And those people have already opted in and know us. And so what I see is also like this interesting multi-touch point type of thing, very similar like with retail, right? Or e-commerce, that you need to kind of show up in different places, like follow them around the internet. And it's like the same type of thing where, oh, they've seen us like at a webinar, then I speak at other events, or they get like a newsletter, or we're featured in someone else's newsletter. It's like somewhere our name is floating around and we stay top of mind. And that's helpful for referrals, not just on the B2B side, but actual brands. Like we recently I got an email from somebody that said, I was referred to by such and such, and I have actually never even met this person.
Yeah, right.
So, right. And it's like this person clearly, and I typed her name into my email and I saw her come up somewhere like in one of the lists that we got for a webinar. So clearly she's seen a webinar and she thought of us when her friend said, hey, we need someone for Amazon. And so I'm getting referrals from people I've never even met before. And that's the best kind of referral, because that's already network effect.
Yeah, right.
And it's just like that multi-touch point, like ecosystem, where you're showing up in different places and you're known in the space. And that kind of eliminates that friction point of guy in a closet, right? Like right now, I'm just a guy in a room. How do you know if I'm any good at Amazon just because I'm talking about it?
Right. I could be in my basement right now. I've got a fake image behind me. You don't know.
Yeah, exactly. And some people work from their basement, and that's fine too. But as long as they have a team that are real people around the world, and everybody treats each other well, and everybody's kind of a specialist and it's organized well, then there could be real value there.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's interesting. So I'm curious, Pasha, do you do like speaking engagements or any of these other ones? Like I'll just go back over that list. One of the things that we do, I'll come back to the speaking one. One of the things that we do, we really do go work with our software vendors, right? So we've got software that supports our business and supports the services that we provide through the business. And those ones I take really seriously because they are highly complementary. Typically, they're actually selling direct to our customers, right? Like our customers, to our brands. So they'll create software for agencies and they'll create software direct for brands. And so we make relationships there for sure. And we spend a good amount of time like trying to nurture those relationships with specific individuals inside. To your point, I have to think about this. We probably want to build more relationships than just the one person that's in that company, because they will leave, a year, 2, they're going to go. How many years do you think they'll stay there? 3, 4, 5? It starts becoming less and less realistic when you start thinking of it like that.
Yeah. I think the company approach, or at least like becoming friendly with a couple of their colleagues just to kind of get yourself known, The software angle is definitely something that we're focusing on, just as like a secondary pivot into SaaS potentially, but also of course to support the agency. So there's like a twofold approach there. And kind of I remember in our previous conversation you were mentioning that if you have a conversation and it's not a good fit for the client, then you at least have the ability to upsell them and be in touch via some small ticket subscription, like to a software, right? So it's another sticky point where you can nurture a relationship even if it's no now you're
Yeah.
working with them, right? And it's like
Well, one thing we don't, well, I will say this, like when we work with brands, we make this, and we put this actually in our contract, like we put it in our master service agreement. We don't take any commissions off anything. And we do that on purpose. Because as a brand, first off, agency trust, you know this, right? Agency trust is like, it's probably negative. It's below zero. It's not like 5 or 100, 0 to 100. It's not even 5. And so to avoid any of that stuff, we will recommend things that we like, and we don't make any money off of it. So we do that because of the trust factor associated with it. But honestly, like if it was different context, I wouldn't be ashamed of doing it. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. If you did make a commission on shitty software that you recommend to a brand, that's just kind of a bad ethical move. Like you're not going to be a good business person by doing that. But I think just philosophically, but that's how we look at that. The other one's like the service alignment stuff. Like I don't know enough about AMZ Optimize. Like you guys are obviously Amazon, but what else? Like tell me a little bit more about what you guys do.
Yeah, so we're a full service Amazon agency. We have an in-house content, advertising, operations team, and then we have lots of partners, like you were mentioning, kind of for logistics or for expansion into Europe or any of these types of things. We have a seat for DSP, and we focus mostly on that. And we've recently I was like you, and I was just like Amazon only, and I'm like even the name AMZ Optimize, right? It's just like Amazon everything. But then so many people started like, no, you got to do TikTok, and I started to really see the value of TikTok as an add-on service to Amazon. It's a beast for sure. Like it's a completely different skill set, and we have some people in the team that have recently joined that are kind of like, they're the heads of the TikTok thing, because I'm not the expert in that. But we've seen that once TikTok is implemented, Amazon sales grow tremendously. And especially if there is some kind of a percent on revenue that we're earning on the Amazon side, it makes sense to have that TikTok buffer just working in order to support the brand on the TikTok shop, on the Amazon side, on the Shopify. So that's something that's like a kind of a newer development, which I'm excited about.
Yeah, it's cool.
Amazon is our bread and butter, and it probably always will be.
Yeah, and we took a different approach. Like when TikTok came around, we were very nervous about the political landscape, because this was like, I think it was this time last year. Yeah, I think it was this time last year that things were really rocky with like geopolitically. And we had spun up our own service. We were already managing like eight brands on TikTok. And we're like, we're not going to keep going. We don't even know if this thing's going to be an entity in like 2 months. And so we didn't like get rid of it. We just stopped going after it. And then we just decided that it was, better for us to just continue to double down. But we have partners that we work with for all those things. That's the whole point of this conversation.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then we've got pretty close relationships. So like when we do our partnerships, we set up point of contact stakeholders that have intersection points that then interface with the brand, and they're all formalized. We don't white label. We think, again, it's a trust thing. We think that like it's better to just go ahead and be transparent with the brands that we work with, to let them know like, hey, this is just how we're structured, but we still provide a great service, and they don't really care as long as it's being managed properly. So.
So you introduce them to the point person of that,
exactly.
that organization, and you say, these guys are the experts, work with them.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I think there's so much value in having a network. That's almost something that's not like, you can almost pitch it, right, as a part of like your service offering is like, and we say that in a very kind of low key way, where if there's something that we cannot do as a team, I can guarantee you that I have a network that's strong enough to find an answer to your problem.
Totally.
Regardless of what it is, right?
Yeah,
I need to get listed on Home Depot, or I don't know, whatever, some specific thing, right? It's like, I can find you the answer to that. And then there's more obvious things, which is like, I need a 3PL. It's like easy, right? I want to sell in the UK. I need a VAT. Easy.
Yeah. For us, we don't like decoupling Amazon services like advertising and seller operations or marketplace operations. Those to me are less natural decouplings, where like we're just an ads. We're full service. Like we're just like you. We do ads, marketplace operations, and we do like all the catalog optimization. So CRO, SEO. But decoupling that, like if I was just an advertising agency and I partnered with like Seller Candy to go do all of the operations piece, that to me gets challenging because for Amazon, at least, you need all those parts working together.
Yeah.
TikTok and Amazon, they're their own separate beasts. And so where the connectivity lies is in and around the strategy, the planning, the road mapping, and then the execution on both of those, but they operate independently as long as they're glued together with a roadmap. So that's why that functions well for us.
I agree. I mean, I think if so many times it's like, oh, could you run the ads? But the content is not good. Or the operations are like the catalog's messed up. There's not enough inventory being sent. And it's like all these other things. So it's like you want us to run the ads, but we're sending traffic to something that's just going to fail. So if we don't have control on those elements, it's like there's no point in even doing this.
Right. And I think brands don't, I mean, this is the thing. It's like, depending on the brand, who you're dealing with, they may not be thinking about all these things. That's what that's what our job is, right? That's why they're hiring an agency. But the other piece of that, the other side of that coin is you've got to educate them on being able to do, like, say, like, this is why this stuff matters. So
yeah, the education, the expectation setting, all of that, it's definitely, it's something that's not really, you can't put it in a pitch deck, but it's important. So Drew, if somebody wanted to reach out to you for a partnership or just get in touch and learn more about Vinculum, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, just hello at, you can email me at Drew, but hello at Think Vinculum, Drew at Think Vinculum. I don't really care. It doesn't really matter. And then, yeah, we'll figure out a way to, see where there's some synergies, whether it's like the audience-based sort of approach where it's like we share, like we'll share, like if we see it's a fit, we really don't just like, we won't carpet bomb our brands. They don't ask us to do that. They're already getting enough cold inbound emails from every other agency in the world. But if there's real fit with the services that they provide, we do this. So there was a brand that we worked with that like was doing pricing optimization, a very sophisticated way of doing pricing optimization. We would then roll that out to brands to say, hey, listen, and we would do the marketing. And so then, because we can then control the message, we don't make commissions off of it. And we're like, hey, this is a pilot, we're happy to like go and do that. The other ones are like what I talked about before, is we're like, if you've got a network and you value your network, we value it too. So in those instances, you probably need to know a little bit more about us, be able to credibly like refer us.
Yeah.
But the reality is those are the two types of audiences that we work with. And you can just reach me at Drew at Think Vinculum.
Amazing. Drew, I really enjoyed this conversation, man.
Same. Yeah, man.
Yeah. I appreciate you coming out and chatting and sharing a couple gold nuggets of wisdom.
Yeah, this is one of the more interesting ones, man, because we're getting into the nuts and bolts of like managing an agency. So I like it.
Yeah. Thank you everybody for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.
See you guys.